All right, hello. My name is Amy Greil, and I am glad to be here with you tonight representing the City of Kenosha Commission on the Arts. I am currently acting as chair of 11-member commission from the City of Kenosha, and we're very pleased to be sharing some interesting projects and perspectives tonight through our interview here that we'll be talking about in a moment. So I would also like to introduce the Kenosha Creative Economy Strategic Plan. This is a planning process that was brought about through the City of Kenosha Commission on the Arts and is being performed in partnership with the UW-Madison Bolz Center for Arts Administration. We're very excited to be engaging in a 2-semester process that will lay out a roadmap for the Kenosha community to advance the creative economy. As part of the Creative Economy Strategic Plan, we also have a set of interviews and a series of engaging conversations with leaders that can share their own perspectives of the creative economy here in Kenosha area. So with that, I would like to introduce our series, Community Voices, which shares perspectives, hopes, and aspirations from community leaders working within the creative economy. They'll share ideas for strategies to advance and enhance the creative economy here, and we'll be using this data for research and promotional purposes. So with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, my colleague here, Kristin Krowe, who is a qualitative data analysis collaborator from the University of Wisconsin-Parkside.
Hi, I'm Kristin Krowe. As Amy said, I come from the University of Wisconsin-Parkside. I'm a communication major graduating in December, and I joined Amy and Francisco because I have an interest in learning more about qualitative data analysis for future career options. And of course, I'm an advocate for the creative economy.
So with that, we'd like to introduce our main event here tonight, which is highlighting the perspectives and sort of opinions of a very close colleague and very strong leader in our community. This is Bob Schneider, who is acting as Executive Director of the Kenosha Community Foundation and is serving as President of the Board of Directors for the Kenosha Creative Space. Bob is very active in our community and a strong proponent for philanthropy as a way to stabilize the present and also shape the future. Bob is seasoned by careers in law, in banking, in county government. He is a product of what is basically a lifetime of leadership in business and in the arts and nonprofit sectors. So with that, I would like to basically open up our interview here, and Kristin will lead off with our first question.
Okay. All right. So Bob, could you tell us a little bit about your organization and what your role is within that organization?
Well, the Kenosha Community Foundation is a grant-making organization. It's a typical community foundation. They have them all over the country. Racine has a substantial one. Milwaukee has a huge one. We have a modest one, but we do make about $300,000 worth of gifts and grants and scholarships throughout the year. So it contributes. We think it contributes, has an impact in the community through these philanthropic gifts. We have about $7.5 million in our endowment now, and it generates, as I say, about $300,000 a year in gifts. So.
All right. And why do you consider yourself a creative?
A creative? Well, I guess just being active in life requires some creativity. I'm 75 and I'm still at it, so I guess that makes me, I'm not a couch sitter. I guess that, I sometimes think my wife would like to spend a little more time with me, but then when she does, she's happy I go to the office. So I consider myself a creative in that respect, that I'm just interested in the arts. My mother was a piano teacher and played the organ in the church for 40 years, and she tried many times to teach me the piano, but that didn't work. But I still enjoy music and I enjoy the creative arts.
Well, and I think what we've seen in some of our research with Kristin and the KenoshaRising project is that there are certain people in the community that act as gatekeepers. And we believe, Bob, that you might be such a person because you can really identify who are some of those rising sort of gifted individuals that could benefit from a little extra support and exposure, and basically your keen interest and I think skill set really allow you to kind of propel the careers of others. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think one of the roles that the Community Foundation can play, a lot of cities like, Racine has one, and Milwaukee has a kind of a consortium of arts groups, who raise money and then give it out in grants to arts organizations. We already have that here in Kenosha through our arts fund, which is a part of the Community Foundation. And I think building that endowment will help us to impact the community through grants. And then, of course, the creative space will be, I think, a real hub for creatives. I mean, we're looking forward to, to having not only the visual arts, but the performing arts, and people, it's a place for people to come and share their ideas and share their interests, and hopefully we'll meet more people through that vehicle and be able to identify how we can impact the creative economy. The creative economy is a kind of a different word. I studied economics in college, but we never talked about the creative economy. We were always interested in what industry and things of that nature. But so that's a new concept. But I think statistics that you have gathered already with the KenoshaRising has indicated that it's a pretty important part of our community, both in terms of lending itself to economic impact, but also to helping people stay or making people want to stay in our community. I think there was an article not too recent in the Kenosha News about how we're losing young people to other places because they don't feel Kenosha has that kind of, when we really do. We really do have a creative group here, that, my gosh, when you think about it, the Lakeside Players have been around for 40 years. Kenosha Symphony's been around for over 75 years. So we have arts institutions in Kenosha that we can build on and, promote in the community. And I think those things will, in the creative space, will help to keep young people here.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And now that you've had some experience in the creative economy and you're a very active member in that, what do you see as specific components of a successful creative economy?
Well, I think some of these older institutions that we have, like the Lakeside Players and the Symphony, are certainly going to receive their share of fundraising and their share of support. So I think we really have to look at some of the newer things, which I think the creative space can foster, and that there needs to be more venues like this, like the Fusion, where young people can come in and perform and recite poetry. They can play music, they can sing, they can, these are the kinds of things that they want to express themselves. This is a generation that self-expression is important. My generation, we just sat in the back of the church, Now people want to sit in the front of the church, and so you have to give them a platform and a venue to do that. So, and that I think that's important.
Right. So you're talking about having those spaces and places to give people those platforms for their expressions and their creativity. And also, I think what you're referring to is a community that will support those young artists, musicians, creatives to develop those skills even further. Are you referring to that?
Yeah, and I think also that people don't really realize how much talent there is here. I've gone to, a perfect example, they're doing West Side Story out at Bradford, and I'm going this coming Friday night, but the people I've talk to, they just think it's a magnificent production, and they do such terrific work out there through the school district, but people need a place to let people see their talent, and Francisco's done a lot of work with his pop-up galleries, so that artists get some exposure, and I was at a little get-together last Saturday night, and the fellow that had the part, he had art, and it was a lot of it was from Kenosha artists, and it was really good. It was really interesting to look at. So I think all of those things will, make Kenosha a better place to be and live, work.
Beautiful. So that audience being a real key component.
Right. Definitely. And how would you say either you personally or you and your organization adapt to the creative economy?
Well, I think I've tried to, in the Community Foundation, we traditionally have made grants to social service organizations, and obviously they play an important role in helping people in the community that need help. But some of those organizations are, heavily supported through fee for service with government. So they're major organizations. They have $1 million budgets, and our little foundation, we don't. We wanted to branch out and try to look at organizations like the creative organizations, and if we give $10,000 to an organization like the Symphony, or to give some money to the Lakeside Players, or to those organizations that, that has a big impact to them. That makes a big impact. So I've tried to, in our board, to try to get our board to think more about, when we give a grant, what is the impact on the local community, we like to support, obviously the Shalom Center needs to be supported, and Feeding America, we gave money to, Feeding America has $1 million of budget, and they're going to survive whether the Community Foundation supports them or not, but there might be a local arts organization here that wouldn't survive if we didn't have them on our list, so I think we're trying to be more impactful in that way, not just to give grants to the traditional organizations year after year after, and be a little bit more creative in our thinking, as to who we support and who we help.
That's interesting. And I also wonder, Bob, if there's some interest of yours specifically in the Kenosha Creative Economy Strategic Plan that might help you as the head of the foundation, maybe identify what are some of those organizations, initiatives, projects that really would move the needle, so to speak.
Yeah, well, of course. The work you've already done in terms of the initial survey, and gave us a good idea of the size of the creative what its components are, and where areas that need to be fostered. So that's terrifically, tremendously helpful to us and to our arts fund and to our grants committee as a whole, to kind of see, where can we be, where can we have the most impact. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the continuation of this and to see what the eventual strategic plan looks like, because that has to help people, make, in terms of their grant making.
Right, aligning resources to some degree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have some pretty substantial, what we call donor advised accounts. This is where a person makes a substantial gift to the Community Foundation, but they control, basically by recommendation, who gets the income from that endowment. And it's nice to be able to sit down with some of those people, because they really haven't really thought much about where they're going to use the funds that they have at their disposal. And so if you can sit down and show them something on paper, that says, hey, look, here's what's going on in the community, and here's the areas that need attention, they're apt to take those recommendations. So.
Fantastic. And as we go into this planning process, we're certainly trying to reach out more and more into our networks and broaden the base and broaden our supporters so that we can bring new resources. It's not just recycling and fighting over the same limited pools.
Right.
Is, continue to engage and extend the community that we can reach.
Well, in fact, the things that you're doing in terms of collecting this information and analyzing, helped us significantly in raising funds for the Kenosha Creative Space, because people didn't really understand. Most donors are not, they're not up on this thing. But if you can show them, look, this is the impact of your gift, and these are the people it's going to help, and this will have a real community impact. They say, oh, yeah, let's do that.
Fantastic. We're all in this together.
Yeah,
definitely. And what strategies do you think Kenosha, like as a city as a whole, could take on to better support the creative economy?
Well, I think utilizing, and of course this is a little selfish in my point, but utilizing our arts fund at the Community Foundation and building that endowment. It's about $100,000 now. And, we have a really strong committee there that's, really focused on we did the sculpture walk. I think that had a big impact on our lakefront. It kind of tied that all together, and we're promoting the sculpture over in the Civic Center Park. We did a big survey there to see if the community would accept that as a part of their park. And so I think, that would be helpful if we had one sort of, if everybody wasn't competing, but we had sort of a clearinghouse for grant making. That would certainly be a strategy that would be, I think it would work here, because everybody has their little prejudices and their little, but great. I haven't seen that on that committee. They're genuinely looking for how they can impact the community, and if they had more money to do that, that would be certainly be helpful.
Absolutely. So I think that's a key one that we can consider as part of this planning process of what is that clearinghouse and how, can that be grown and, fortified with, sort of advisors that are kind of unbiased, but also very connected, and, that we can really rely on their judgment over these funds.
Yeah. And I think it's important to try to bring in the sort of industrial base. We have a lot of development out in the industrial parks, new business. I think they just announced another business coming in. And those people, the people who manage and own those businesses, don't know a lot about Kenosha other than the fact it's a good place to do business, so we need to expand our message out to those people, and make sure that they know they don't have to keep living in Lake County. They can live in Kenosha County too and get the same benefits.
Or at least contributing.
Right.
Even if they don't want to move.
Yeah.
But so do you have any specific ways or advice of how we can better engage our business community, particularly those that are maybe newcomers to the community?
Yeah, I think, of course, I think Chris Nauman has done some work with it, sort of like an ambassadors program and I think something like that would be helpful if we had, a half a dozen volunteers who had, pretty substantial positions in the community and had, credibility in the community, and they went out and made calls on these people and just let them know what's going on in the creative community. I think that would be helpful, just, that obviously they have a job that they're earning a living at, but, on a volunteer basis, if somebody spent a few hours every month or so just to go out and call on these businesses and explain what's going on in Kenosha and what we have to offer, I think that would be a big help,
Absolutely. And with your involvement with the creative space, this is another opportunity to really start sharing the good news of what's happening. And it's a up-and-coming project. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you have your ideas for how to better create the creative economy and better support it. What are your personal expectations then for your involvement in the creative economy?
My personal expectation is we're going to build that creative space. I always tell Francisco, this is my last hurrah, you know, and we're going to do that. And, you know, I think a lot of people didn't think we could do this, but I can tell you we're very close to bringing this about. And with the cooperation of the city and the cooperation of some major donors, we're going to put that old building to very good use. And right now, that's my main focus. Is to do that.
It's impressive.
And I mean, certainly on behalf of the community, Bob, we really do appreciate the efforts and the long nights and the sleepless nights you've had on behalf of the Kenosha Creative Space.
We wake up in the middle of, where are we going to get this money? But, you know, somehow the community has responded. And I think some of the work that you people did, you know, has helped immeasurably to spread that message, you know, that there's real benefit in developing a creative economy. You know, there's an economic benefit and there's a benefit to the community and the quality of life here.
Absolutely. And the notion that everyone can find a way or find expression for their own personal gifts and interests, and that they could find even a place within the Kenosha creative space, for example, because we really are, you know, striving to create a place that, you know, is multi-use and
we'll have that co-maker space in there where people who maybe have an interest in ceramics or interest in crafts and things but don't really have the space in their home or the wherewithal to provide the necessary tools, you know, to expand on that, can come there 24/7, you know, and be a member of that and utilize that and get training on these various things. And you know, I think that's terrific. And we have somebody who's had to run that, who's had significant experience in doing it. And you know, it's come back to Kenosha and now wants to go. He seems, every once in a while, he looks a little hesitant, but then I can see that glimmer in his eye. He wants to do this, you know, and he's going to do, you know, he's like, you know, he's like
he's determined, yeah.
He's determined, you know, I was going to say it was like a new bride getting, you know.
Okay. Well,
I won't go there.
No, that's fantastic. So, I mean, I think this is a great discussion that we'd love to hear more about, and certainly wish you the best, Bob, as you continue forward with your projects and with the Kenosha Community Foundation, the creative space. And just wanted to thank you for your time here, and we'll be in touch.
Hey, great. I'm here. Come down, visit us at 652nd Street.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.